When you were a child, you may have scratched your name into a tree. You may have wrote your names or initials into wet cement. And these are the silly things you do when you're a kid. What you're about to hear is far, far more serious. I want you to meet Anthony Murphy of Mythical Ireland. Good morning, Anthony.
Good morning, Will. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Where did this incident happen, first of all, before we talk about the incident itself?
Well, I'm sure your listeners will be well aware of the Loughcrew complex of megalithic monuments up on the hills there, close to Oldcastle. It's in the far northwestern corner of Meath, but it's very close to the border of Westmeath and Cavan there as well. It's a Neolithic complex. I mean, it's probably at least the same age as the great monuments of Newgrange, Naas and Dows at Brunabonia, and possibly even older again.
And describe it for us. What would you find if you walked up there this morning?
One of the hilltops, there are 4 hills in total, is accessible to the public. That's Slieve na Caillia, also known as Cairn East. And if you walk up there, I mean, aside from the fact that you have the most stunning views of the surrounding landscape, it is said locally that you can see 18 counties of Ireland on a clear day from Loughcrew. It's the fact that the hilltop is covered with a number of cairns, piles of stones, basically. The major one there is Cairn T, which is very famous for its equinox sunrise alignment. So twice a year, at the spring equinox and the vernal equinox, the rising sun shines into the chamber of Cairn T, and many, many people would have been there over the years and viewed that.
So comparable to Newgrange, but perhaps a little less famous.
A little less famous, but certainly no less beautiful. And in terms of the megalithic art, one of the things that's impressive about Loughcrew, compared to, say, older monuments on the hills at Carrowkeel, for instance, or in Sligo, is the fact that there's so much megalithic art at Loughcrew. It's almost comparable to Brunabonia, perhaps just not quite as lavish, and monuments not quite as big as the major monuments of Brunabonia.
How well preserved is it, Anthony?
The truth is that it's not very well preserved. Over the years, the cairns have slowly degraded and denuded. A lot of that would be down to human activity, people walking around the place. Cairn T is reasonably well preserved, although it is inaccessible. The interior is now inaccessible to the public because of subsidence within the monument, which is reckoned to have been caused by a huge number of people who insist on walking up onto the top of the cairn when they visit there, despite the presence of signs saying, please do not walk on the cairn. The rest of the smaller cairns, unfortunately, don't have their roofs. So the roofing slabs were long ago removed, and they are open to the elements, unfortunately. So what you see is a sorry remnant, in some cases, especially with the smaller cairns, a sorry remnant of what were at one point bigger, more lavish monuments.
A lot of what you've described, the human behaviour, maybe is born out of ignorance. It's certainly not deliberate, outright vandalism. What has happened now?
Well, you're absolutely right, Will. A lot of people, when they walk up there and they walk across the cairns, they don't realise that they're walking on 5,000-year-old archaeology. What happened this week, unfortunately, is very different and very deliberate. Somebody picked up, at least one person, and the name is inscribed, picked up a stone, it looks like, and etched his name onto a stone at one of the smaller cairns, Cairn U. Several of the stones have scratch markings on them. So this isn't spray paint, this isn't marker, this isn't something necessarily that can be removed. This is somebody who actually intentionally scratched their name onto one of the stones there. On top of megalithic art, real artwork that was inscribed there by, or incised there, should I say, by artists of the far distant, remote Stone Age past.
However much it may offend our heritage sensibilities, Is it an offence to do this?
Oh, absolutely. It is an offence to damage or deface a national monument, and there are penalties. Obviously, the difficulty in this case, and in many cases, Ireland, as you know, is covered with a carpet of archaeological monuments dating from as long ago as the Middle Stone Age, Mesolithic. We have monuments in Ireland dating back around 9,000 years to monuments that are what you might call late medieval in the past couple of centuries. It's very difficult to protect them. It's very difficult to keep an eye on them. Monuments like Newgrange and Meath are protected because they have a full-time staff there, they have security, they have fences around them, all the rest. Loughcrew and other similar complexes don't have that level of protection, and in fact it's probably impossible to maintain a 24/7 guard upon these sites. What that means is the accessibility of them depends on the public behaving themselves. It's a privilege for us to be able to access, walk around, touch these stones that were put in place by distant ancestors of the far remote past. It is a privilege, and it's a privilege that we are very, very fortunate to have. But I fear, with the number of vandalism incidents that have happened, especially during the lockdown, that privilege we may find in future being removed, because one could argue that the only real solution here is to fence off monuments to prevent access. Either that or something like 24-hour CCTV or security. But again, we don't have, I don't think the resources are available in heritage.
No, well, look, neither is a particularly savoury outcome. You would rather that civic trust alone would mean people behaving themselves. We have an image, and I think you shared it, or Mythical Ireland did via Facebook. Ben was here. Do we have any idea how to track down Ben?
Well, I have to say that I wouldn't get involved in sort of a lynch mob approach to this. But I would say I would reach out to Ben over the airwaves and say, look, Ben, I don't know what you thought you were doing, and I don't know whether you thought you were being cool or whether you were trying to impress some of your mates or what, but this is not cool. You have damaged a national monument. If you were caught in the act and reported, you could be looking at a hefty fine or a prison sentence. I would favour the approach of education. We need to educate, especially our young people, as to the value of these. That's something that I've been doing through Mythical Ireland for the past 22 years. One of the things that I try to do is to promote our heritage in a positive and constructive light, to try to get people to realise how precious some of these sites are. I mean, there are people in America who come to Ireland, well, not in the pandemic, of course, but up until 2019, certainly, a lot of people who came from America and Canada and other parts of the world absolutely marvel at not just the monuments and the artwork and the design of them, but the fact that they can get into close quarters with these monuments and touch them and be in the same location as people were 5,000 years ago. So I would say to Ben, look, take a long, hard look at yourself. This is not cool. This is not fashionable in any way. This is called vandalism. And, if you were caught, as I say, you'd be facing punishment. Don't do it. It's, have a look at, some of the literature about these monuments. Have a look at some websites.
Oh, that's
Watch
exactly. Appreciate what you
videos,
have.
And appreciate it. And appreciate how rare a treasure these things are.
Finally, Anthony, it's hard to judge from the picture how deep it is. Any hope of restoring it?
Well, the only thing I can say in that regard is I haven't seen this up close myself. It's outside of my 20-kilometre limit, my county limit. From the pictures, it looks like it is semi-permanent damage. I know sometimes when you scratch stone upon stone, it may fade. It looks like the sort of thing that might be there for a number of years to come. It's hard to say without having seen it up close. But if you look carefully at that picture, you can actually see the older, much, much older megalithic art. The reason the megalithic art doesn't look so fresh is because it has been out in the elements, in the rain and the frost for the past probably couple of centuries and has been worn down a bit. So we hope that Ben's name will not be... I hate even using the name, I don't want to give him notoriety in case he's listening and he does think it's cool, but hopefully there's something that can be done,
Anthony Murphy of Mythical Ireland, good to talk to you. Unfortunate circumstances. By the way, tell us about Mythical Ireland for anybody who may be interested.
Well, Mythical Ireland is what I describe as a one-man organisation dedicated to promoting and disseminating information about Ireland's archaeology, in particular our prehistoric sites, and with a strong focus on the Neolithic sites, and also their associated mythology and folklore, and examining the stories of the monuments and what those stories may offer us in terms of insights into the function of the monuments.
Well, I hope our next conversation is more positive. Take care.
Thanks.